What'd you say?
Welcome to tonight's program. It gives me great pleasure to introduce again, because Alan has been here many times and is always very entertaining. He's here tonight with his new book, Borscht from a Catskill Mountain Plumber. Should I say that 5 times? More Borscht from a Catskill Mountain Plumber. So we are recording this for our YouTube channel, Library's YouTube channel, so it'll get uploaded tomorrow. So I will send a link to Alan. You can share it with whoever you want. You can just go to our YouTube page. If you're familiar with our library website, you go to our website and just click on our YouTube page and find it. But I'm also going to send it to some people that have asked. So that should be available tomorrow if you want to share it with anybody. So Alan, we'll turn it over to you. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks a lot. So I think everybody in the room knows who I am. I'm not sure I know you though.
Becky Friedman.
Friedman?
Becky Friedman.
Becky Friedman.
I've seen her around.
Yeah, probably saw me in the post office. My picture's in the corner if you go through all the photos.
I've seen your wife perform. Yeah, right. I've seen your wife. Yeah.
All right, so my presentation is called Catskill Tchotchkes, and I am a huge collector of things from the Catskills, as some of you know, and I want to talk about that for a minute. We are opening, I'm part of a group that's opening finally after many, many years called, it's a museum in Ellenville called the Catskill Borscht Museum.
What is that open?
It's going to open July 1st, but it is a pop-up museum. Questions after, okay?
No, but there's an opening, there's a big plans for July 26th or 7th.
Wait,
Oh,
I got the rap.
you got it, okay. You should know.
I hope so. July 1st is just the opening of the pop-up museum. And I want to explain to everybody that a pop-up museum is not a full-blown museum. There's only certain items that we can bring in. It was only so much money that we had to do this show, and that's basically what it is. And let me just close the door. That being said, when you come to the museum, don't be disappointed in saying like, this is it. There's more to come. This is just a taste of what we are doing. So July 1st is the day that we're supposed to open. The museum's going to be open until the whole month of July, but then on July 29th, we're going to have a Borscht Belt Festival. I'll be talking again. I'll be talking again. There's comedians, singers, dancers. It's just going to be a Borscht Belt Fest the whole day long. You have to get tickets, I know, to some of the events. The following day on Sunday, I'm going to have a special bagel brunch and tour of my house. Only about 16 or 18 guests are allowed because my house is small. We give you the complete tour, and so it's going to be an incredible weekend. So let me backtrack a little bit. We have been getting tremendous publicity from different newspapers. I was in the New York Times, the New York Post, a couple of the local newspapers, the Middletown Record, and NBC Nightly News picked up on this and they got interested. They were at my house yesterday filming and interviewing me. So we spent about, I don't know, at least an hour and a half with Harry Smith, and that was a delight, just meeting him. Because I watch Channel 4 News, that's the one I watch, so I was thrilled to have him. And then at the end we had a bagel together, it was really sweet. And right after that I was interviewed by a Jewish magazine called AIM, or something like that, I can't remember the name. And we had about an hour interview yesterday, a very large kosher magazine. And then I got a call when I was working in the museum setting things up. Oh, someone's coming to your house to do another photo shoot. I said, this is crazy. Okay, I'll be there. You gotta say yes to a photo shoot. So I ran back home and we finished the photo shoot. He took pictures of me in front of things and my things. And then I ran here. So I'm glad I made it. And we're gonna go through the slides, and then I'm going to talk about some other great things that are happening. And I just want to talk about some of the stuff here. My book is available. I have some menus available. I have a sign from the Pines, and everybody said, the Pines had a fire and there's nothing left. It was a very suspicious fire. I don't know if you can use the words Jewish lightning, but it seemed like Jewish lightning because one building burned and another burned and then another building. Very weird fire, okay? So there are a couple of buildings that are still standing. So I want to talk about King Herman's bungalows. This is one of my favorite signs in my collection. Herman the Winter owned the property that Lefty's was on, okay? And behind Lefty's was the bungalow colony, the Winters. Very popular bungalow colony.
Yes.
He ran it for a number of years. I knew Herman because my dad had the washing machine account there, the coin-out washing machines. And then he gave me the business. So we had a couple of deals with Herman. He was a heck of a guy. Anyway, across the street was a small bungalow colony with about 8 units in it. And Herman was finally established, you know. So he went to buy the colony. Now, he was a Holocaust survivor. And one of the ways he survived is he was a photographer. So the Germans used him to take photographs of stuff. Anyway, that's how he survived. When he was buying this bungalow colony in his life, he was a little older by now. He felt like he was a king from where he had been. And that's why he called it King Herman's Bungalows. And a couple of years ago, the bungalows were still standing. And I went in the old laundry room, which was the filter room for the pool, and there was the sign. I said, oh, that's meant for me. So I grabbed the sign. So that has a lot of meaning. It really does. But we're going to go through the slideshow now of tchotchkes. I hope. It worked before. Okay.
Oh, God.
So I just got these at a yard sale recently, and I'm going to ask some questions. I think I know where the Park Restaurant was. Was that at the intersection of Broadway and Park Avenue? Does anybody know? Because I'm not sure. Two of them are on Broadway. The next one, the Antlers Hotel, was in North Branch. Who knows from North Branch? I know the country. The Crossways. Everybody knows the Crossways in South Fallsburg. Smith's Bar. Anybody know where Smith's Bar was?
No.
Me either.
Well, you know what, you ought to call Dennis Duker, he knows some.
Who's that?
Dennis Duker,
Oh,
he knows everything on Broadway and
yeah, good source.
Yeah.
Okay. And Hunter's Inn, I know, was on the old 17, right outside of Liberty, on the right-hand side. Because a couple of people have told me, this guy let anybody drink. We were 14 and 15, he was giving us booze. Didn't matter how old you were. Crazy.
In those days, it didn't matter that much.
Well, true,
Like today.
true.
Right.
Things are different. This is a sign, if you were in good standing and you owned the bungalow colony, you were a member of the Bungalow and Rooming Association. I don't know what that meant, maybe you just paid your dues. Your bungalow's still gonna be conserved, I'm not sure. And if you were in good standing, you got the 1953 label, the following year. I don't know what happened to the association, how long it lasted, but I'm glad that I got a bunch of these when I was doing an inspection in the basement, and there was a stack of them. And I said, those are quite valuable, and I have sold those through the years to a lot of different people. I don't have many left. So this is a shot of my garden in the background, but I salvaged this old hand pump. I don't know if any of you remember using one if you lived on a farm, but that's the way. And I remember at my grandparents' place in Mountaindale, there was a pump, and we always used to love to pump the water and get a glass of water. But then the Board of Health came around and said you can't use the pumps anymore because we don't know the purity of the water. You got to put chlorine in the water. So things changed. And my dad's telling me stories that they had a drilled well and the water was excellent. Before anybody ever said, let's bottle the water and sell it, which we could have been millionaires, there was something in the water that tasted so damn good. And I mean, people would show up, we'd give them a glass of water, and they'd go, wow, this water just tastes great. Now, my dad said it could have been part of the brass pipe or something that added to it. Not that it was bad, but it just had the best taste. And, so we couldn't use the pump anymore. They took it out and put a big stone over the old hand-dug well. And he just told me recently that every once in a while, the bucket would break, kids would throw things in the well. It's about 30 feet deep. My grandfather tied him on a rope, and he climbed down the wall, and he had another rope, and he brought up all the stuff at the bottom of the well, because there was so much junk in there, I don't know. But I said, "You did that?" He says, "Yeah, I did that when I was younger." So, and you know, there used to be a lot of tourist places up here. It wasn't just hotels, but tourist was another word for a rooming house. But I like the sign because of the edging. I noticed some signs back then had that design in it, you know, make it a little, give it a little flair. Does anybody know what this is? Yes, I just got this off a job about 2 weeks ago. The guy was doing a remodel, and I said, "What are you gonna do with that thing?" He didn't even know what it was. He didn't even open the door. He was just gonna destroy it. I said, no. I need that piece. So we popped it off, and it's now in my back shed, which is a new kitchen that I'm building.
Oh, an ironing board. Wow.
Ironing
Oh,
board.
there you go.
Now you got it, right?
Now.
Okay. And a lot of bungalows, fancy bungalows, had those built in the wall.
But how do you wire it, on your knees?
No, I think you can.
It's upside down maybe.
Yeah, it folds up and then you close the door.
Right.
How do you raise it
No,
up?
but does that go up? I mean,
The
that's
iron
on
board's
the
too
ground.
low right now.
Say that again?
To iron, it's too low, it's too low for iron.
No. I have it on the floor, but it was built in the wall about this
Yeah,
high.
Yeah.
It wasn't on the floor.
Right.
I don't have a,
Gotta take it apart.
I didn't build it into the wall
Right,
yet.
take it apart.
Give me a couple of weeks, you sound like my wife. I'll get to it. This is just an old, remember The Man from U.N.C.L.E., the
Yeah.
TV show back in the
Yeah.
late 50s, early 60s. I love that.
Yeah.
I don't even know where I got the book, but I remember building, I'm a model builder, you know, and I remember building the gun, the crazy gun that they had, and I brought it to school. You know, it was just a wooden thing, silver, whatever, and it looked good. Can't do that today.
No.
You get a toy gun, you know? So I distinctly remember when I found the book. This is just a typical old bungalow clock. And do you remember in bungalows, there used to be an outlet close to the ceiling? That was so you could plug the clock in and the wires wouldn't hang down. You know, if you're looking, when I go into still a lot of old bungalows and I always see the outlet up there. Unfortunately, it doesn't keep good time, so I couldn't really use it in my house.
And the outlet used to have a little hook
Yes,
Yeah.
just for the clock.
just for the clock.
You would know that.
Yes.
Mr. Electrician. This is a model that I built, speaking of model building, of a duplex bungalow. And it's highly detailed. I don't have a shot of the inside in the slideshow, but you could see that I use crinoline for the screens. And it is very, very delicate. And I had it displayed, it's going to be in the museum, but I had it displayed at the Bagel Festival 2 years ago. And this little girl, I grabbed her finger because if you touch that crinoline and you pop it in, it's almost impossible to put back, like, you know. And she started crying, and I said, "I'm sorry," you know. And the mother said, "Do you see what that says?" I don't know what. She didn't read it, so you know. But I do have one stone because that's what they used to put the bungalows on. I had to keep it kind of level. But over here on this side, this is the way they made the railings. They just bent a piece of pipe, or if the guy had an elbow, he'd screw an elbow in. Everything was on the cheap, and nobody had decks. What was a deck? They would build a set of steps that had a little tiny spot to stand on, you know, and they filled it with rocks, tons of rocks, because it was cheaper than filling it up with cement. It was the filler. This is a picture of my grandparents' bungalow colony on the Old Liberty Road, Sedanics. It's a very popular place right down the hill from the Delano Hotel. And I found this picture recently, and I posted it on Facebook, I believe. And I got an email from Diane Dinner, and that was her mother. And she wrote me back, you got my brother on the picture. I didn't know any of the people, I don't remember them, I remember her. And that's the old casino, which was a very classy building with that roof. But I think about 5 years ago, I was driving into Monticello, and the roof collapsed. And I was so shocked because of that design, you'd think it would really stand, but something happened and they just put on like a typical old truss roof and they made it look like garbage, but they weren't gonna rebuild that. But check out the Lightning Arrestor up there. And yeah, that was a classy building. It's a story in my first book, or a second book, about Jake the Snake. Jake was a local bookie. And at the end of this, and he rented an apartment for my grandfather. At the end of the summer, he had to pay rent, so he came to my grandfather's bungalow colony, Sedamics, and he starts yelling for my grandfather, because that's where we park the cars. And my grandfather said, "Yeah, I'm in the casino, come in the casino." So he walks in, and the casino still had, this was a hotel, it was the Spring Lake Lodge. The bar was still there, the mirrors behind the bar, all this beautiful mahogany, and he fell in love with it. And he said, "Irving, I want to rent this space from you." I said, "Sure, after the summer, this would be perfect, more income. You gotta do two things. You gotta put blinds on the windows, and you gotta give me heat." And he was in the plumbing and the heating business. He said, "Sure." So he put in a big heater, put the blinds in, and he said, "I want the doors to open outward." My grandfather didn't think about anything. So he did exactly what he asked. So he was having card games, and it was quite profitable for him and my grandfather. But some disgruntled customer must have reported something to the local police. And then they staked the place out. And then the lookout guy said to everybody, "Get the hell out." So they all ran out the back door, because the doors opened outward. The cops ran in. It was a disheveled place. There were still cigarettes in the ashtrays, still beer bottles tipped over, but no patrons. They were deep in the woods already. They had enough time to run, and I guess the cops weren't going to chase them. So they went to my grandfather's apartment. He goes, "I don't know what they were doing, and I just rented him the space."
Did you know his last name? His last name? Rosenblatt?
No, something different. But I don't want to bring up last names.
Oh, okay.
So that's the story of the casino, and it lasted a couple months, but like all good things come to an end, and it did.
Interesting though, right?
Now, I was in a rock band. Denise might remember a little bit, which was the New Generation. And we were quite popular in high school. And this poster, my mother saved everything. She taught me how to save. That's why we have a Catskill Borscht Museum. And you're going to see some amazing pictures of some items. But somebody made the poster up, and we were playing at Fialkov's. I think everybody remembers Fialkov's. That's where you stayed. That's where you lost quarters in the washing machines.
My mother used to yell at people every day.
It's funny driving by there now and seeing what's happening.
Oh,
But
I know.
in the casino, and it was a casino, and not a venue, we played there, and I love the poster. Teeners, all teenagers welcome. Now, our band was different than all the others in town because we really had a psychedelic show. We had an old movie projector, we showed movies, we had day glow things that spun around, we built a homemade strobe light, we had props. And our music was pretty good, but sometimes the guys would say, your music's okay, but your light show is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And this is like 1968, 69, so some of the guys were starting to take a toke, so they would come to our performance and it was like enhanced. I mean, not that we knew what was going on, but
Of course.
so. Now, this is a shot of my back porch. This is not an old bungalow. This is my house in Mountaindale. And there's some great pieces that you can see.
Yeah.
And it's even a little different now, and then I got rid of the air conditioner and I put another sign up there. There's one fan, but now I have three. These two pieces are going in the museum, and I have the table, similar table and chairs will be there. I don't have a picture of it, but I had a double Adirondack chair, like a den seat. Kind of rare, they weren't as popular as the singles. If that chair could talk, let me tell you, there was a lot of hanky-panky going on in that chair. I'm sure of it. But the chair is in such bad condition because it's been outside of my house for a couple of years because I never thought it was museum worthy, but the two curators are like, no, we want that condition. Okay. So I had to put a lot of stuff behind the chair so that at least it could be lifted and delivered. And I saw it today, it's got a little platform. Thank God they put a sign on, don't sit on the chair. Because the workers might sit on it and it would just, so
I would
they
think
said.
they want everything in your house.
What's that?
I would think they want everything in your house for the museum.
Well, we'll talk about that with them later on. We'll see. We'll see how much is actually gonna go. I have a lot of duplicates and I'll show you that right now I'm negotiating with somebody else. I was doing a job, springtime, and I walked in this guy's bungalow and I walked in the back room and there was another Hoosier cabinet, a different, totally different style. And I said to this guy, I really need that cabinet. And he just moved into this bungalow, he just bought it from the place. I said, I really need that. So we spoke the other day, I said, what's going on? He says, well, my wife doesn't want replacement cabinets, she wants money. I said, listen, you owe me about $400. It's not worth that much, but we'll call it even, okay? Call it even. So we keep missing each other. He didn't say no, but he hasn't said yes. He keeps coming up with these weird answers. But I gotta get it there soon. I gotta get there soon. I'm sure I'll get it. Now, this is an interesting sign here, because that's an old RX sign. This is pre-neon, where it's hard to see, but these are little tiny metal discs, and the wind would blow the discs, and that's what would catch your eye. Pre-neon. So how do we get somebody? Anybody know what this is, this little piece?
Yes, grilled cheese.
No. It's metal. No, it's metal.
What it looks like.
You cook with it. Used to make grilled cheese sandwiches.
That's grilled cheese.
Let me turn it up. These things are worthless. Let me tell you, once you get
That's what she said, it's a grilled cheese, you put your.
I thought you said skis.
No.
I'm on full volume, maybe I'll hear you better.
Okay.
I apologize. I'm always looking into places and finding stuff. That's a knack that I have, so. Don't ever ask me where I get these things. No clue. So that's, and this is the new kitchen where I had to get replacement pieces. So I went to Sears and I bought a hot point, refrigerator, and a Kenmore stove. I found it in a bungalow recently, and the guy is doing a rehab. So he says, yeah, take whatever you want. So, and I hooked this stove up so it works. Gotta use a lighter. I want the pilot lights on all the time, but it does work. And my wife's pretty happy. What's also nice is you can't see it, but there's two lights right under there and the clock. It all
Yes, the
works.
washboard.
It's beautiful.
Awesome.
I plugged in the refrigerator the other day and I got nothing. I don't care. I don't care, but I'll use it for storage. I'll use it for storage. And this is a very rare sign in my collection too. I've never seen another one, Hotel Zone, 20-mile limit. I got that in front of my grandparents' colony. I couldn't have been 11 or 12 years old. It was in the ground, in the shrubs, on the side of the road. That started me collecting street signs and all kinds of stuff. That was the beginning of my career, whatever.
Is the washboard?
Yeah, I got a bunch of washboards. Actually, I'm a washboard player too, in jug bands, and I got some great washboards. I can't wait to do another performance with some of it. I got one now that it's kind of thick, and it's a little decorative cabinet, but I can open it up and grab something to eat while I'm playing it and close it. I can't wait to use it. Yes,
I have a glass one, do you want one?
I have one, but I'll take another.
Okay.
Gotta find
I'm
it.
always looking. They have a different sound.
Oh,
They
yeah.
really do.
Yeah, I offered it to my daughter-in-law yesterday, because she
She
was
said
washing
no?
the, well, she was washing in pails in the shower, the clothes for boys for their baseball, because they get them filthy. So she's constantly, you know, as you would spoon. I said, you need a washboard to go with it.
Great.
She said, no, she doesn't want a washboard.
So that's the new kitchen, and also, if you can see, there's a Maxwell House can there, Savern Coffee up there. This is a picture that's in the museum now. There was millions of those in the hotels. That was like the standard picture for drinks and stuff. So that's going. And this item was in the Pines Hotel, and somebody just recently got it for me. It was not in the building, I think, that burned, but another one. It's like a lampshade. Talk about kitsch. It's really ugly, but it's vintage, so I hung it up. And now you can see in this picture the other fans too. So let's keep going.
Oh, the ringer.
This is the ringer. You know, I just hung it up, and when you slide, if you remember, you slide that over, you got a deep sink, and that's where you bathe the babies, right?
It's called the wash.
The wash tub.
I was bathed in that. And pictures of me being bathed in that.
It's deep, it's deep. So this is in another shed of mine, and I'm slowly putting the pieces together, you know, the old sink and the cabinet. Let me tell you, I installed a couple of these with my dad as a plumber. They are so freaking heavy. Now, my grandfather, he used to be known as the mule because he worked so damn hard. He tells me that they would stand up a cast iron bathtub and he would get in it and he'd walk up 3 flights of steps to install it. I'm like, that's beyond my expectations. But this sink alone was, you know, a 2-man job. But I remember installing those with my old man. It was tough. I got a case of these great bottles from Carlin's Dairy. And of course, that's the way we all used to get milk delivered to the front door. And my brother and I would fight over the cream in the morning. You know, people are starting to sell that kind of milk again. I see in different places. You know, you can get that now. So I'm always looking at stuff to get that has to do with the Catskills. And this is a jigsaw puzzle, and this is the map that they made years ago, and somebody made it into a puzzle. And at the same time, this guy wanted me to buy a lot of stuff from him.
Are all the pieces still in there?
It's not, it hasn't been opened. It's fresh.
Oh, we need it, because Marvin does 1,000-piece puzzles. Year long.
It's staying in the box, honey.
Sorry.
But at the same time, he had board games. He had one for Ellenville, Monticello, and had all the stores listed. And then he has another game I bought called Montemopoly, like it was a board game specifically for Monticello too. No pictures, please. I'm only kidding.
I have to show that to Marvin.
But no pictures of me because I'm in the Jehovah's Witness protection.
Oh.
Somebody was at a yard sale and bought this book, and I'm going to talk at length about this. It is the 1940 edition, and this book was specifically made for the hotelsmen, and you could see the table of contents, restaurants, refrigeration, metal contractors, all this list, sanitary equipment. I looked through the book and there were great ads. And the interesting thing, and I'm going to backtrack and explain about the museum project. The museum is located in Ellenville. We looked for about 1.5 years for a building in Sullivan County. And we looked pretty hard. And we couldn't find a building that had the right presence. I mean, we were offered the back building of the Liberty Museum, but you had to go through the museum to get into it. It was the old warehouse. And there were some other buildings. We looked at the school in Mountaindale, which is beautiful from the outside. But that's really just a shell, and it was going to need a tremendous amount of work. Plus he wanted an enormous amount of money. So we settled on this bank building in Ellenville, and I should have had a picture of it, but if you go to the newspapers or the website, which I hope you do, you'll see it's a beautiful old bank, and it has historic value. It's also on the National Register. but the particular bank used to give loans out to bungalow colonies and hotels when they couldn't, it was hard to get money back then. So it had a history of the Borscht Belt. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because in the book, okay, they're showing Sullivan County and they're showing this piece of Ulster County. So the reason I'm bringing this up is we've been getting some emails from people saying, how could you have a museum in Ulster County? It's gotta be in Sullivan County. So I said, all right, so what if we did it in, I don't know, Narrowsburg or way up north? Well, that wasn't the Borscht Belt. I go, you're right. This is a Borscht Belt museum. This is not the Sullivan County Museum. And that was part of the Borscht Belt. And it's still part of the Borscht Belt. I hope the Neville gets on its feet and creates what he wants to do. There's still tons of bungalow colonies along Ulster Heights Road. I just took that road recently. I couldn't believe it. So, if you hear the naysayers, and there are, I can't believe they put a museum in Ulster County, it belongs in Sullivan. No, it's a Borscht Belt museum. And this was the Borscht Belt here. You know what I mean? That was the Borscht Belt. And I probably made the circle too big. You know what I'm trying to say? It was an area that was known as the Borscht Belt. So that's why it's located there. This is my backyard, and I collect old metal pieces, old wheels, and I just worked on this recently and cleaned it up, and I started hanging wheels from insulators that I got. When there would be a storm and everything would fall on the ground from the telephone poles, and I see it, I need it. So there's old compressors and pumps and fire hydrants, and this wheel probably came out of an old factory and had one of those big leather belts that operated a sawmill, something, water powered. This came out of an old movie theater. That's the side of a chair. Does anybody know what that was used for? It was used in a barn. It hung upside down. These wheels were on a track. What they used to do is, if you ever noticed, barns used to have this protrusion out the top. They used to store the hay on the second story. So this spins around, and they had pulleys so that they could grab a couple bales of hay from the top, hook it up, run it along the rails, and then drop it down into a wagon or the yard. And somebody was burning down a barn a couple of years ago. Let's see, you can't burn it down until you get that piece down. You gotta save it, and thank God he did. So I talk to a lot of people in projects, and I tell them, I need anything old that you're gonna throw out. Anything, we need it, we need it. And I'm just trying to save history. So this is a lousy picture, but whoops, oh, there's a close-up. I didn't mean to do it that way, but now you can see it better. But what I wanted to show you was, in the background, there was a drugstore in South Fallsburg. Roy was the druggist. And on top of the drugstore, there was this sign, and it says lunch, and this is the RX sign. And there was another one that got destroyed in Hurricane Sandy that said soda. And when the drugstore was bought to be converted into teaspoons, which since has burned down, the signs were on the sidewalk. And I came to work that day and I said, oh my God, they're throwing these things out, they're history. And if you ever see the movie again, Walk on the Moon, there's a cameo scene of the drugstore with an old car in front of it. Just a couple seconds, just trying to show that vintage period. And the signs were still on it. So they were in the movies. They were in the movies. And there used to be lead in the gasoline. So, and there's an old nozzle in the front of a pump. I got that from my brother-in-law's place in Ferndale. So when hot water heaters started up, gas hot water heaters, that was a really big thing in the late 40s and 50s. I don't remember where I got this, but if you were a dealer, I guess, and you bought enough of the heaters and you got points, I guess you got some prizes or something, but it's no good anymore. It's void after 1950, so I can't collect. This is when ice cream was cheap, even though it was ice milk. 15 cents was pretty damn cheap. Now, speaking of ice cream, Howard Johnson had 52 flavors, 48 flavors?
A lot.
A lot. Didn't do them any good. They went out of the ice cream business. So even with all those flavors, Howard Johnson's famous ice cream, no more. Does anybody remember Squirt soda?
My husband used to sell it.
He used to sell it, so I guess you remember it.
He was the 7-Up man.
He was the 7-Up man. So from 7-Up, didn't they make Veep?
Huh?
Veep, wasn't that another product?
No, it was Royal Crown, 7-Up, Squirt, and another one. I don't remember the other one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I have a huge soda bottle collection. And you know what? I don't know if Veep was part of the same brand or if Veep was
That doesn't
competition.
sound familiar to me.
Later on, you had Fresca, I think, was
Yeah.
another imitation. But Squirt soda.
I don't remember.
Concord had their own pads for gin rummy scores. And I got these at a yard sale recently. Irving Cohn was the famous maitre d' in the Concord for years and years and years. And I guess you got these as your to register for the table and your name. And here's a menu, typical Concord menu, and just look at all the stuff that you could eat. And you could eat it all. That was so amazing. You know, you can finish one dish, give me this, give me that. Just keep eating. But I like the way they would say, like, broiled native young fowl vegetables. It's a chicken.
Broiled chicken.
It's a broiled chicken, you know.
That sounds good. But it was a
What's
salted
roast roulade of tender? What's a roulade?
I think it's
Royal.
It's broiled.
Royal, yeah, it's
Oh.
a, you know.
Yeah, but it says roast roulade.
I think it's rolled up.
Oh,
Since-
that makes sense.
Also,
You know, they made everything sound so incredible. And look at the price of the wines, you know? A bottle of wine for $4. So, next. And even on the kids menu, look at the three mains. I don't know any kids that would eat calf's liver, sauteed Hungarian.
Oh,
They would eat Chinese-style spaghetti with simmered chicken strips. That's what they ate. But they made it sound so inviting. I just threw this in because it's just one of these old magazines that I found, who knows where, from 1894. It's an oldie, and you can get the whole magazine for a year for $1.50. And you gotta be really careful reading this one because the pages are old. Now I keep this in the slideshow because, you know, they're trying to sell the magazines, but it's all about fighting Hitler. So, you know, this is during World War II in the 40s. And just, you know, tolerance, promoting tolerance of all people, anti-bigotry laws. I don't know how far we've gotten. I just don't know how far. And this is from, check this out, 1906, and this guy found a cure for cancer. And I'm not going to read all this, but he says that he can cure all these things.
What year? 1906?
June 1906. Singles weekend, you had Village People and Jon Stewart. Hoo-ha, I'm going.
Look how young.
Yeah.
1996.
These are just two nice old chairs in my backyard that I restored. El Dorado Hotel, which was a big hotel in South Fallsburg. And this is some Passover stationery that they would send out, showing them their camper and, you know, the whole thing about Pesach. And I have the sign from the hotel because it was given to the Sullivan County Museum. And I got a call from Myron Gattell, He said, Alan, we don't have room for this, which I didn't understand. We don't have room, it's too big. I said, you bring it to my house, I'll hang it up. So I told my wife and they delivered it. We're putting this sign on the side of the house. Yeah, go ahead. I thought this was gonna be a fight. Because she has her limits, but she's great, she's just great. And that concludes the slideshow. And these were old, I found a box of these in Trudy's toy store in South Fallsburg. They're decals. Sometimes you can't even pull them out of the sleeve because they're so old and they got dried out. But basically it's a simple slideshow. And I have a couple minutes and I was just gonna read a story or two from the new book. But I left that book, let me see something, in the different box. Are there any questions? Any answers? And I even forgot my glasses, so this is going to be really tough. Okay, I'm going to do this.
250s?
Are they readers?
Yeah. 250s.
Great.
I just don't want to take them off this thing. Keep the.
Sure. Great. Oh, good. 200?
250.
Oh, real good. Okay. So Marion Wink was a good friend of my family's and my wife's family, and I got to know her. Her family owned Pollock's in Ferndale, and she was a great storyteller. Anyway, Marion Wink worked with her parents at the Ferndale Hotel named Pollock's. She was a dear friend of mine who had a great sense of humor, which she said she got from her father. He would always share that with his guests to brighten up their day, or if not theirs, at least his. At one of our many family dinners, she shared some of her personal experiences with me. It was a busy weekend when a customer arrived for a short stay and requested something inexpensive for his family. The potential guest told her dad that he didn't have a lot of money, but promised his wife and 2 kids a weekend in the Catskills. Based on his lack of finances, her family took her family to an affordable room. Every hotel had the main building, which was typically the original farmhouse. This inexpensive room was on the 3rd floor where the staff was usually housed. It was the best that Mr. Pollock had to offer his financially limited guests. They climbed up the stairs, and as the heat continued to rise in the old, uninsulated structure, Mr. Pollock opened the door for the family to take a look. Now remember, this wasn't one of the better rooms, but it was in his price range. He poked his head in and immediately explained, "This is a pigsty." Mr. Pollock looked him straight in the face and said, "So how many pigs will be staying here this weekend?" True stories. I'm going to take a little piece of Frank Youngstein, who I met at a talk a couple years ago in Delray. And I just want to get to the story, okay. Frank had a full car one day with 4 passengers, and being that each one looked older than the next, the youngest at 92, he wasn't quite sure if they were going to make it to their destination or not. So you can just imagine what a scene it was getting them and all their belongings loaded into the car. About an hour and a half into their trip, they made the traditional stop at the Red Apple Rest, everyone's pish stop. Frank looked at his watch, knowing he was losing time because his passengers moved so slowly, but he finally herded them up once again, and they were off to Swan Lake. The drive was going smooth for about 15 minutes when Frank looked in his mirror and saw red flashing lights behind him. He wasn't speeding or doing anything wrong, but with all the suitcases strapped to the roof and bulging out of the trunk, he knew it was a standard inspection, making sure he was completely a kosher driver. He pulled off the highway, got out of the car, and with the documents in his hand, approached the trooper's vehicle. Tried doing that today, and he gets shot. After a few minutes of going back and forth with the officer, he was told to get going. Frank jumped back in the car, slammed the door closed, and took right off. Immediately, one of the ladies started yelling, "Stop the car! Stop the car!" Frank couldn't imagine what she was yelling at. Sam's outside, she yelled. Frank looked in the rearview mirror and saw his oldest patron trying to catch up as if he was running for his life. What the hell's he doing outside? One of the ladies in the back seat answered, he had to go out to take a pee. He stopped the car and backed up before Sam had a heart attack. When the rider got back in, Frank shouted, we just stopped at the Red Apple. What's the matter with you? You couldn't go then? Breathing heavily, Sam replied, wait till you're my age and you'll understand. Sometimes you just can't go when you got the chance. What can I tell you? True. Let me get this one here. Sherry Biggeleisen told me this. She's since passed away. She spoke Yiddish so well. She started telling me the story in Yiddish. I said, you want it in the book, you gotta give it to me in English, okay? Okay. Buddy Hackett and his parents vacationed in Gendelman's bungalow colony in Spring Glen. Not too big, but it had a nice crowd. His mom had a dog whose name was Pudgy. The dog was a bit on the chunky side. Sherry's grandmother also stayed at Gendelman's. Having come from the old country, she had a small problem with her English. Sometimes her memory and her hearing weren't so sharp either. On many occasions, she'd see Mrs. Hackett around the colony and would always politely inquire about her son. So, Nu, how's your son Pudgy? Mrs. Wasserman, I keep telling you, I don't have a son named Pudgy. That's my dog's name. Mrs. Hackett, I'm so sorry. That's who I'm asking about. Your son, isn't his name Pudgy? I keep telling you, my son's name is Buddy and my dog's name is Pudgy. Several days later, Mrs. Wasserman got a bone for Buddy's mom's dog and walked over to Hackett's bungalow. With a light knock on the screen door, Buddy's grandmother appeared. Hello, Mrs. Hackett, how are you? Fine, thank you. I was at the butcher's and he had a nice big bone. I told him I needed it for a very friendly dog, so here's a big bone for Buddy. Mrs. Wasserman, the dog's name is Pudgy and my son's name is Buddy. Listen to me, they almost sound the same, so you can call your son whatever you like. I'll call him Pudgy because he looks like a Pudgy, and the dog is so friendly, I'll call him Buddy. And that seemed to put the whole matter to rest. After hearing the story, I wondered what it would have been like to hear Johnny Carson introduce his next guest as Pudgy Hackett. Here we got time for one or two more. This is one of my favorite fishing stories. Sheila and her best friend were 13 years old when they heard about a place where cute boys were known to hang out. It was at a local river in Fallsburg. I think it was Old Falls. I think that's where everybody hung out even back then. And their colony was probably on Route 42. She couldn't remember. The girls knew that there was no way their mothers were going to allow them to go off and meet some boys at their age, so they came up with a clever idea. They told their moms that they were going fishing. There'd be no problem with that. So Sheila and her friend grabbed their dad's fishing poles and was off to the river. Everything that they heard was true. Sheila and her friend met two cute boys. They spent the whole day flirting and dunking their feet in the water, but all good things must come to an end. Well, it was time to go home, but the only thing they caught that whole day were two nice boys. The girls couldn't bring them home. So what do you do when you don't catch fish? You buy them. Between the two of them, they only had about 25 cents. As they walked into the local fish market, the owner saw their faces along with their empty fishing poles and knew just what they needed. He said, let me see those fishing poles, girls. He hooked on two choice fishes, which couldn't have made it any easier for them. When she returned to her kachalim, her mother saw the fish on the pole and shouted, oh, my Sheila caught a fish. I'm so proud of my daughter. However, sitting on the porch next door was an old man that everyone called the fisherman. Early that evening, when the girls walked past his porch, he said, come over here. I know you bought those fish. How do you know that? Her friend said defensively. Because you can't catch those fish around here. They come from the ocean. But don't worry, your secret's safe with me. And from that day on, whenever they walked by the fisherman, he put his index finger up to his lips, and he gave me a sign that it's their little secret. I love that fishing tail. That's one of the best. But I have one more, and then we're gonna conclude. I didn't mark the page.
Good old days.
You bet, you bet. Let me just find this one little story. And you're gonna love this one, I guarantee it. Okay, not the movie critic. Okay, 122.
Is this from volume 1 or volume 2?
This is volume 2.
Two. And then you have three.
No.
No, he's gonna volume
One
3.
and 2. I'm working on
He's
3.
working on 3.
Working on
Gefilte fish for the soul. I don't know when it'll be ready, because it takes me a while. But I'm going to Florida for the month of August to hang out with my dad, so usually when I go to August, usually I have time
Where is
to.
he in,
Delray Beach,
where?
Flanders F. We have 2 condos right next to each other, so it's great. 122. This is a very famous group here, you know, I feel like we're just talking to my family. Okay, Philip Morris, and the sirens stopped. There's nothing more exciting to a young boy than seeing a fire truck roaring down the street with its lights flashing and siren blaring. Philip was staying with his family at Altman's Bungalow Colony on Hyden Road, just outside of South Fallsburg. The evenings were getting a little cooler, and the leaves were just starting to turn as the celebration of Labor Day was only days away. Phil and his brother were playing on the front lawn when they heard a siren in the distance heading in their direction. They ran up to the fence along the road, expecting to see the fire truck flash by, as it always did. This time, something was different. As the truck finally made its way in front of the colony, the lights were flashing, but the siren was quieted down just long enough for the firemen to shout out, "The war has ended. It's over." There were many people on the lawn, some of whom, upon hearing this momentous announcement, began to cry with joy. I can't even imagine how they felt. The sirens started up again as the truck continued down the road in the fall of 1945. I love that story. It gives me chills every time I read it. I'm so happy that he shared that with me. It's so, I just can't even picture that, you know, what it felt like. I wasn't born yet, so, you know, for these people to finally, the war is over, you know, that's, to me, that's a very moving story. Thank you for the glasses. So, that concludes tonight's presentation, but I have one question. I'm sure everybody knows what these are, right? Rabbit ears. And that's why you have kids, because you made your kid go up and move this in the right direction. Okay, that's it. Now it concludes my presentation. Thank you everybody for coming out. I have an album here, just a sampling of some of my old papers.